Hello, everyone. My name is Emily Hulse, and I'm a marketing coordinator here at Vibrant Labs. And today we are so excited because we have the director of marketing, Sarah Ashman, on the call. And as well, we have Kayley George, who is a registered dietitian. And we're so excited. We're going to be chatting a lot about gut health today, and especially how that can aid in weight loss. So a topic you might not necessarily put together with your gut health, but it really does make a difference. So Kayley, go ahead and tell us a little bit about you, kind of your story, your business, and the kind of clients you treat.
Yeah, perfect. Well, thanks for inviting me to do this. I talk about weight loss and in the approach of a non-diet approach. So talking about lifestyle changes, talking about addressing every single person in an individualized way, which is why we do this testing. Diets are just this blanket protocol that people are supposed to do this, do and not do that. And I come at weight loss from an individualized approach specific to every single person. And that's why I love diving into these tests too. So I have been a dietitian a few years. I love working in the functional medicine space, which is what Vibrant specializes in with the testing. I run a practice with other dietitians on my team to help women specifically like that busy working woman who has kind of put herself on the back burner. That's the person that we typically work with to help them not only lose weight, but just really transform their lifestyle and heal their relationship with food. So we also pull in therapy and other things that work on the mental health side too. And we do a lot of lab testing. We do a lot with Vibrant. Gut Zoomer is just one that I run, but we do a lot of lab testing and really diving into the nitty gritty science behind every single person's goals and physiology and just really dig in on the lab. So I'm excited to run through the Gut Zoomer.
Awesome.
Thanks, Kayley. So because you do use some of Vibrant's testing in your practice, as far as these patients that you're working on with weight loss and lifestyle change, how would you say that tests like the Gut Zoomer and our food sensitivity panels aid in weight loss, or just kind of maybe transforming overall general health?
Yeah, so we always want to come in and really address, before we even get to weight loss, we need to address what the person is experiencing from symptoms, from other concerns with their health. Because if you don't address those things, it's going to be hard to get to the weight loss. The body is trying to tell you something with these symptoms that it's kind of screaming out at you, whether it's bloating, whether it's, indigestion, whatever's going on, the body's trying to tell you something. And so before we can even get to the weight loss, we really have to address what's going on from a symptom level and get that person just feeling better in general. And that's going to make it easier to work through those lifestyle changes. When you have low energy, when you're bloated, when you're constipated, when you're just feeling like kind of low overall, it's going to be hard to work through those lifestyle changes. It's going to be hard to make changes with your health. It's going to be hard to hit the gym when you are bloated and feeling tired all the time. So we really want to work on just addressing those symptoms, getting the person feeling better. And a lot of that can be addressed through the Gut Zoomer, food sensitivity, if those are the main complaints. I do see a lot of women come in with complaints around digestive issues. So we use food sensitivity or Gut Zoomer, kind of depending on the severity of the symptoms. So if someone's having really painful digestive symptoms, really like debilitating symptoms in a way that might even be starting to creep into like their life, their quality of life. So maybe they don't go out to eat anymore. They don't go to social events because they can't eat food without it having bad reactions. I'm probably going to go for a food sensitivity first, just to kind of calm, whatever's going on, take out those reactive foods, do some elimination protocol, just kind of address the more like immediate symptoms. And then if it's not as severe, then I want to do a Gut Zoomer. A Gut Zoomer goes a lot more in depth. Food sensitivity is kind of what's the symptom is that the body is producing, whereas the Gut Zoomer is why is the body producing this in the first place? Why are we having food sensitivities in the first place? That's what the Gut Zoomer tells us. The food sensitivity just helps us treat immediate symptoms, and it's a great tool. But if we want to dig deep, that's where I go for the Gut Zoomer.
Great, thanks.
Interesting. And so I know that that's an interesting relationship between kind of the gut zoomer and food sensitivity, but in general, with your clients that you work with, so weight loss especially, what would you say is the role of just overall gut health and gut diversity in this type of client?
Yeah, so there is a lot of research. Gut health is a really trendy area right now in the wellness space. And so the great thing is we have a lot of new research coming out. So we know it's very well established that there's certain or lower gut diversity, and certain strains that are lower do lead to things like metabolic dysfunction, impaired, glucose regulation, like imbalanced blood sugar, dyslipidemia, things like that. So we know just from a kind of a really high level standpoint, lower gut diversity, higher chances of having metabolic abnormalities. And you can get really nitty gritty with, specific strains that are coming out in research. So again, there's a lot still to be determined there. But just kind of on a high level, we know that. And then there's a lot of indirect and direct causes with weight loss and gut health, gut diversity, which is what we kind of see on that, like the very first page you see on a Gut Zoomer shows you those two indexes, your Shannon index, your Simpson's index. That's telling us our gut diversity right there. It's kind of giving us a high level snapshot. And then there's also a little wheel of different strains that we want to look at. And so those are like right off the bat, really great snapshots of what's going on with your diversity. So a specific one that's related to the metabolic health is the Firmicutes one. So when that one is lower, we're going to see more metabolic dysregulation. So there's some easy things to just pick up right there. And then there's a lot of more indirect things we're looking at in terms of, just the quality of the gut. Diversity will affect things like your nutrient absorption, your nutrient production, your hormone balance, your hunger hormones, all of these more indirect things that, neurotransmitter production that the gut produces or is kind of responsible for. So if we have low gut diversity, low gut health, it's going to affect a huge network of things that are also going on in the body that can affect weight.
Definitely.
Great. So let's talk a little bit about gut diversity in weight loss. You mentioned, the Firmicutes. So the Firmicutes to Bacteroidetes ratio is one of the things that we're measuring on the Gut Zoomer. Can you expand a little bit on the concept of microbiome diversity and how it can impact weight loss?
Yeah, so the Firmicutes is an interesting one that I like to, again, just kind of pick up right off the bat. Because someone can have trouble losing weight when this one is higher. So when we see this one elevated, it's just kind of immediate sign that someone's going to struggle with weight loss, may have something like weight loss resistance. A lot of people complain about something like weight loss resistance, like no matter how much I go to the gym or how much I do this or that, it just won't budge. And this could be one of those reasons why specifically that strain. And then on the other side, you mentioned the Bacteroidetes one. That one is one that we want to get a lot higher, and it gets increased when we have more plant-based foods in our diet. So we can get a pretty quick snapshot of even what someone's diet is like from this test. We can see how much fiber they're eating, how much plant diversity they're eating. If they're having issues with digestion, we can get a really good snapshot of even what their diet, the quality of their diet looks like. And then again, where to start with interventions as well. So those are two things right off the bat. Then of course, in the gut commensals, there is a whole section on metabolic health. And they're not diagnostic, of course. It's not saying because you're, showing higher numbers on this gut commensal for autoimmune disease that you have an autoimmune disease, but it gives us kind of an idea of what their gut looks like in comparison to other individuals with those same microbiome makeups. So that can kind of give us, again, this is all on the first page of the report. There's like dozens of pages in this report, but just on that first page, we can just glean a lot about someone's metabolic health.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And even I'm learning about different markers in regards to weight loss, because there's so many ways that you can interpret different markers. So that's really interesting. And I'm sure a lot of people who watch this will find that interesting as well. And kind of backtracking a little bit. So you talked a little about the neurotransmitters and even just hormones in general, we know can affect weight loss progression. Could you speak a little bit to kind of that difficult relationship between your hormones, your gut health, and then leading to that overall weight loss goal?
Yeah, so I think this is one of the most fun connections between gut health and weight is the part where hormones come into play. So a lot of our hormones we just kind of like write off as these crazy things that are causing these symptoms, and we just don't know what to do about them. But a lot of our hormones actually are regulated by our gut. Specifically, we're thinking like our thyroid hormones and things like our estrogen. I want to hit on that one. I think there's a really cool connection there. So hormones are definitely regulated by the gut, just in terms of the clearance of hormones. That's one of the most direct ways you can think about it, because our liver is responsible for our hormone detoxification. And then kind of that last stage of the detoxification is actually pushing out everything to be excreted, removed. And if we're not having a healthy gut motility, if things aren't moving through like they should be, then we're having toxins or hormones just kind of sitting in the gut. And when that happens, they can be reabsorbed into the body and cause some nasty side effects. So we definitely want to have a good gut motility, things moving along nicely so we can detox like we're supposed to. And that includes things like, again, our estrogen, progesterone, our hormones as well, not just toxins that we don't want in the body. Even just our normal hormones go through the same process. So that's kind of a big thing with estrogen. One of the markers that you actually can glean a lot from with estrogen is the beta-glucuronidase. When it is elevated, it is one of those enzymes that's actually pulling that estrogen back out of the gut and into the system. So if things are sitting in the gut too long, or this enzyme is kind of upregulated, it will pull estrogen, as an example, out of the gut and back into circulation, leading to things like estrogen dominance. Estrogen dominance is responsible for things like bloating and hot flashes and mood swings and like that weight right around the gut. So going back to weight again, that weight that's right around the midsection, a lot of women complain about that. That could be a sign of estrogen dominance. And if the gut's not moving along properly, or if that beta-glucuronidase is upregulated, then we might have estrogen kind of coming back into the system more than it should. So that's all about like kind of your sex hormones. But then thyroid's actually a little known connection, that your thyroid, your active thyroid hormone, is 20% is converted in the gut. So that's 1/5 of your thyroid hormone that's responsible by the gut. And so if your thyroid is responsible for your metabolism, you can have a metabolism that's cut down by 20% if it's not being converted properly in the gut. So really interesting connections there that people don't talk about, but those are really important hormones for weight regulation.
Wow, that is so interesting. Yeah, I don't think a lot of people think about kind of that whole body approach too, how the gut really does start and contribute to so many of these other issues that we tend to kind of look on their own. So that's a great connection to know.
Yeah, absolutely. So along that same vein, where we talk about metabolism and the way that hormones feed into that, gut health, weight loss, they're all kind of interconnected. Let's talk a little bit about the Gut Zoomer and some of the inflammatory markers that are on that test. How do you utilize those for clients who are looking to achieve results with weight loss and metabolic disease in general?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so again, kind of right at the beginning of the report, you're also going to see a huge table with inflammatory markers. There's a pretty long list. Some are more specific than others. Some are kind of just general signs of inflammation, kind of like a CRP would be. kind of just saying, hey, there's inflammation. We're not telling you specifically where it is, but we're just telling you there's some inflammation. So kind of on that same note, I like to run some metabolic labs, again, with Vibrance panels, to look at like a CRP and complement to this, look at things on some other panels that would complement what's being shown on the Gut Zoomer. But yeah, inflammatory markers. The one I really like to look at is the calprotectin. It can be a little bit more specific to the intestinal lining, the integrity of the intestinal lining, any inflammation going on there. Because if we have any inflammation in the intestinal lining, we're opening up the gut lining, those tight junctions, and exposing the gut to things that shouldn't be coming through. So that's commonly known as leaky gut intestinal permeability. And when we have that going on, we're just going to trigger inflammation even more, because now you're having food reactions. Your body's being signaled to have an inflammatory response to things that should not be creeping through this leaky gut. So that's what I'm really looking at is how many things are kind of like highlighting on this inflammatory panel. Are all of them, flagged? Are just, is it maybe just one marker flagged, and which one is it? And is it going to give us some specifics, or do we need to dive in a little bit more elsewhere to see where that inflammation might be stemming from? But anytime you're having inflammation, you're going to have weight loss resistance, because your body is just in that fight or flight state. It's being signaled that something is going wrong, and it's more concerned with correcting that than it is to lose weight. The body needs to be in a really safe place to want to lose weight. If other things are kind of going on behind the scenes, it's going to focus on that first and shoot up those inflammatory markers.
Great. Yeah, that's an excellent explanation.
And then something else that you had touched on a little while ago, and that I don't think many providers or patients really know, is that the Gut Zoomer, a lot of the markers can actually tell us about an individual's dietary patterns, so their nutrition habits. Can you speak a little bit to that and kind of your interpretation of that?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things I look at to kind of glean information about someone's quality of diet. Of course, we know a lot of these things from talking with the patient and just background information that we already have, but this is always a good way to validate that too, especially if someone doesn't want to face the music about the quality of their diet or the fact that they're eating out 10 times a week, or what that's actually doing to the body. I always like to pull in the data to kind of back me up on what changes we do want to make, because it's one thing to talk, but it's another thing to see the numbers and see the data. So this goes across the board for all the tests we do, like a wheat zoomer as well. If someone doesn't want to believe that they have sensitivity to gluten, great test to pull in to just kind of show them the data and not just talk to them about why gluten might be causing some reactions. So a couple of things that I look at, I'm definitely looking at the like the short chain fatty acids. I'm looking at the they have there's a whole panel on that, your butyrate, acetate, things like that. And if we're low on those, we definitely need to up the fiber. Fiber is what fuels those short chain fatty acids. So I'm definitely looking at that. And I'm definitely looking at going back to that first page, that the plant-based bacteria, the Bacteroidetes, that one can indicate if someone's eating enough plant-based foods in their diet or not. So I'm looking at those things. And then I'm also just looking at the quality of their digestion too, because someone could be eating really well, but it's not actually getting absorbed properly because they don't have the proper pancreatic enzymes, other, bile acids, other factors related to digestion. So someone might be feeling like they're eating well, but it's actually not. It's not coming through like it should be. So we can look at quality of diet and then quality of absorption as well, with kind of those first few pages on the test.
Great. That's such an excellent way to look at everything. That's really interesting.
Yeah. And I often pair this with the micronutrient test as well, because that will back up. I actually have one I just ran last week, got the report back, and they had a laundry list of deficiencies. And I knew it wasn't necessarily just because of diet. And when we paired it with the Gut Zoomer, we realized it was actually that they just weren't absorbing. All of their fat soluble vitamins were not, it was A, E, and D, I think, like almost all your fat soluble vitamins are not being absorbed. And so that was an immediate sign that it's an absorption issue, not necessarily consumption issue. So we can really see the toll that the absorption issues are having when we run that micronutrient. And again, can kind of give some immediate relief, give the body the fuel it needs, but then tackle the root cause too.
Wow, that is so interesting. Yeah, that's a great case as well of the importance of testing and not guessing, just in general for all of your clients.
Awesome. Well, Kayley, we really want to thank you for your time and just sharing your perspective and your experience with some of the tests that are, both the micronutrient and the gut zoomer, as well as food sensitivity, are some of the tests that are probably most frequently ordered. They're some of our most popular tests. And there's some of the ones that are easiest to get started ordering if you're a new provider with Vibrant, because they give you so much bang for your buck for your patients. So if somebody is interested in getting in touch with you or working with you as a patient, how can they find you online or learn a little bit more about you?
Yeah, so easy to find, Healthy Weight Loss RD on Instagram and website. I talk about labs a lot on my account, so you'll see me doing infographics and reels and a lot of information just about how these tests can be valuable in your nutrition strategy, in your weight loss strategy. So I'm talking about labs a lot. I love the Vibrant labs and all the ones that we're running. And I was just telling Emily earlier, there's some that you can get in really easy and start using in your practice. I started with micronutrient, food sensitivity, and then Gut Zoomers, the next one that I added into my toolbox. So just taking one at a time, really getting it down, mastering it, using all the clinical calls and all the resources. And then once I feel like I've mastered it, I go on to add another tool to my toolbox. And that's where I'm at right now, working through the Gut Zoomer, and then hopefully some of the newer tests you guys have, and just building out my repertoire.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Kayley. We appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, and take care.
All right.